The year was 1912 when Ben Hurwitz arrived in America aboard the SS Brandenburg at the port of Baltimore, in search of a new beginning and a better life. He was barely 19 years old, carrying just a couple of suitcases with him, and a big dream. Benny, as he was better known, was a clockmaker from Belarus, where he grew up in a large family and was considered the favorite to make it in America. He was chosen because his father felt he had the most potential to succeed. Repairing clocks and watches ultimately led to owning and managing multiple jewelry stores in Baltimore, Annapolis, and Westminster, originally known as Columbia Jewelers, and then becoming the Colonial Jewelry Company in 1925. It was from these humble beginnings and challenging economic times that lay ahead that Ben's work ethic was cultivated, the tradition of trust and integrity, and it would be his second son, Will, who would carry it on. One of 4 boys, Willie grew up in Westminster in the late 30s and 40s. He was a good student, a valedictorian at Westminster High.
After graduating high school in 1941, he enlisted in the United States Navy, became an ensign, and he served in World War II at the Pacific. Everyone loved Willie. He was an honorable man.
And Willie had a favorite saying that he loved to share with others.
To err is human, and to forgive divine. And that's the mantra he carried throughout his life.
In 1948, following the war, Willie would open his first store in Frederick, Maryland, with the help of his soon-to-be wife, Marilyn Rudo, of Baltimore. They felt the area had great potential and would be a nice place to raise a family. Together, they would embark on a 40-year journey in the jewelry industry, guided by one simple rule, the golden rule, which was to do unto others as you would want done to yourself.
So they came to Frederick. They looked up and down Market Street, and they saw 149 was vacant, and I think they talked to a passerby or two, and they said, this is a great place for a jewelry store.
Little did they know at the time that this location at 149 North Market Street would be just the beginning of their good fortune. The small storefront business sold a variety of items, from clocks and watches to dishes and radios. In the early days, trades were sometimes made with customers, and credit was often extended solely on a promise to pay and a handshake. Terms of the sale were sometimes $1 down and $1 a week. But times were changing. The trolley era was ending. Cars were becoming more abundant. We had won the war and now had a greater ability to communicate and travel than any other moment in history.
Patrick Street was the old National Pike, the original road west, and Market Street was the way from D.C. to Philadelphia. You didn't go along 95, it's too swampy.
Will and Marilyn quickly established their jewelry store as the foremost jewelers in the region, and just as quickly outgrew their Market Street location. Downtown Frederick was booming because downtown was where the larger department stores were. In 1955, good fortune would come their way again in the form of a larger and more strategic space for the business. What had formerly been a turn-of-the-century restaurant located at 9 West Patrick Street was now their new home and would be for another 43 years. In 1968, they met with a group of consultants about their inventory.
And they said, get rid of all the toasters, get rid of the china, get rid of everything, and just sell jewelry and diamonds, and that's what we did.
In the 60s, as chairman of the Downtown Merchants Association, Will helped organize and sponsor several large parades through town. He envisioned a tourist destination, and he knew the cooperation among businesses, if organized well, would only increase trade for all. In 1973, Jeff Hurwitz, Will's second son, would enter the Colonial Jewelers business. The 70s would bring historic change to the downtown. Not only was Colonial Jewelers changing, but young people were freer than ever before. In 1976, Will was awarded Jeweler of the Year in recognition of his integrity, ethics, and progressiveness.
He always said, I would rather justify the price than apologize for the quality.
Marilyn became a well-recognized figure in her own right, contributing greatly to the business's success, and was once called the smartest woman in the jewelry industry.
Back then, there were very few women in the jewelry industry.
And she was really a revolutionary, if you think about it, to be in the 50s and 60s and be a full-time working mom, and she ran the business.
It is said that behind every great man is a great woman. and that certainly held true with Will and Marilyn. But all the hard work the family had done to build the business to that point was about to be tested again.
1976 was the year of the Great Flood. You could row a boat from the square all the way past Walkersville.
The Great Frederick Flood caused millions of dollars of damage to downtown and caused more retail stores to board up and leave. These were challenging times indeed for Frederick, but Colonial Jewelers' commitment to the downtown was only getting deeper. As more businesses were moving away from the center of town, Colonial Jewelers was moving closer toward it.
So we stayed here, there's a few of us left, and then a few restaurants started coming downtown in the late 70s.
It was in the spring of 1978, on the 30th anniversary of the store, that Jeffrey would officially become a partner in the family business. He was only 23 years old and just home from the Gemological Institute of America, where he graduated. Jeff, like his father, mother, and grandfather before him, had a clear vision to keep business alive. They had laid the fire, but it was Jeff who would ignite it.
We met my senior year in college, his junior year. He was different from me. I grew up very conservative, farm girl. Just the way he talked about his family, you know, I knew his family was important to him.
On May 20th, 1979, Jeff and Patty would wed, and for the next 44 years, she would be an integral part of the Colonial Jewelers brand. In 1982, Jeff was selected Business Person of the Year. He was the president of the Downtown Frederick Association and tasked with increasing the spirit of cooperation among fellow merchants. In 1983, these efforts would culminate and In the Street was born, followed by the founding of the Downtown Frederick Partnership a few years later, which Jeff and Patty would faithfully support. In 1987, during a sensational anniversary sale, after 39 years in business, Will and Marilyn would take their final bow and hand the business over to Jeff and Patty and retire to New York City. In 1998, as the community grew, so grew business at Colonial Jewelers, and the company had just simply run out of space. After a long search for a new location, Jeff and Patty would go all in and purchase the Nations Bank building at 1 South Market Street. The 4-story granite facade building, which was once a furniture store and then home to several banks, offered a much wider view than before and sat on one of the most prestigious intersections in the county, Square Corner, which has long been considered the heart of Frederick and the crossroads of American history.
The curtains were really heavy, really dark, and they covered all the windows. And I'll never forget that day that they came down and all this beautiful light came streaming in.
To celebrate their commitment to the downtown and mark their 50th year in business, Colonial Jewelers hosted a grand reopening. And it was during this event that Will and Marilyn would see their family dream fulfilled.
Business increased quite a bit by the move. It was just great for our staff and for everybody, really. It was great for our community that we fixed up this building and made it into the gem that it is now.
Not only did they now have the prime location in town, Jeff's eye for selecting the finest diamonds was only getting sharper. In 1999, adversity would strike again, as Patty was diagnosed with breast cancer. Following her battle, she and Jeff decided to bring the very best treatment to Frederick by establishing the Hurwitz Breast Cancer Fund, and over the next 24 years, they would raise more than $3 million for the community. In 2003, after graduating from the business school at Virginia Commonwealth University, Sarah would return to Frederick and officially enter the business at the ripe age of 22.
That was a really big moment for us because that's where we knew that our business was going to keep going after us.
I always knew since I was really little this is what I wanted to do. I always had a fascination with gems, and I had a rock collection.
In 2007, like her father, Sarah would attend GIA and graduate with a gemologist degree. Just 6 years later, she would become the store manager, and in that same year, be recognized by Frederick Magazine as a person to watch. In 2021, following the pandemic, Colonial Jewelers embarked on a full renovation of the space under Sarah's direction and inspiration.
We expanded our shop, we expanded our custom capabilities, He did a full rebrand of our logo and our colors. It used to be that people would travel down the road. They traveled down to DC or Baltimore for big purchases, and now people from DC and Baltimore are coming to Frederick because they like the way Frederick feels and they like the Frederick vibe.
Now, after 45 years as president and vice president, Jeff and Patty prepare for their succession. What was passed from father to son for 3 generations is now passed from father to daughter in the 4th generation as Sarah becomes the new president. Over the past century, Colonial Jewelers has not just kept up with the times, but been at the forefront of change in the community. Colonial Jewelers survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, fire, flood, and the millennial shift. A couple armed robberies, cancer, and a global pandemic to become the longest continually running business in downtown Frederick. Today, they are recognized as the area's largest single source for diamonds, engagement rings, wedding bands, and other fine jewelry. And while the traditions, customs, and fashions have all changed dramatically over the last 100 years, Colonial Jewelers' commitment to Frederick and to its customers and employees has never wavered, proudly serving the Frederick community for 75 years.